Swaraj literally means self-rule, or it joins together the idea of the self and the idea of sovereignty. So Swa indicates something to do with the self, having reference to the self, and Raj deals with sovereignty or rule or mastery, those kinds of concepts. Swaraj was the word that was used most in the late 19th century and throughout the first half of the 20th century to indicate the major political project that Indians were engaged in through a number of anti-colonial movements, nationalist movements, other kinds of political responses to the fact of British rule and British Empire. So, most histories of Indian nationalism or India during that period, modern India, tell the story of how India became politically independent and how Indians succeeded in ending British rule. So that's an account of how India came to achieve its sovereignty. But I could not find really any good narrative about the search for the self, which is the first half of Swaraj, the Swa in Swaraj. So that's why I chose to try to think about that. And the way I did it was to look at a number of important thinkers and political leaders. Often they were the same people. Intellectuals and politicians tended to be the same in that period of time. And I looked at a whole range of these thinkers and I tried to understand their search for the self. And the way in which I do it is, first of all, I selected 5. Of these, 4 are, I don't think anybody would contest that they are really key figures in India's nationalism and anti-colonial movements. These are Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, Jawaharlal Nehru and B.R. Ambedkar. So these 4 are not really, nobody strongly disputes that they played very important roles, although there were many hundreds of others also in this period. And then the 5th person I chose is called Abanindranath Tagore. And he was a nephew of Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath was mainly a poet and a writer and a painter, but Abanindranath was mainly an artist, and he's considered the father of modern Indian art. And I chose him because I felt that without looking at aesthetics and the arts, you could not really tell the story of how India became a modern nation. Most modern nations try to have a self-conscious sense of their own aesthetic and artistic traditions. And Abanindranath, I think for me, played that role in the Indian story. To try to find the kinds of values and norms that they were trying to set up as the scaffolding for a future India. Right? Of course, it's very hard to try to recapture that discourse from the present, where we think in terms of the polity being in a very degenerated condition, where most ideals and norms and morals and values and things like that lie in ruins apparently, or are highly conflicted and contested. So I was looking for what kinds of imaginings drove such a large number of people in this extraordinary way to try to both free India from British colonial rule, but also to create a completely unprecedented kind of political entity, if possible. Because many of the basic positions of the Indian nationalists are actually quite surprising and counterintuitive. For example, Gandhi and Tagore don't believe in the nation and in nationalism and in the state. Nehru does not believe that there should be a racial or an ethnic basis for nationality. He is committed to secularism. Ambedkar questions existing forms of social hierarchy and social structure in a very radical way. Gandhi is against violence being the center of modern sovereignty and the monopoly of violence being with the state. All of them, in different ways, have problems with the idea of partition because it flies in the face of what they are trying to do under the name of or under the sign of Swaraj.